Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Prince Automation Destination. So today we are going to talk about another interesting topic, that is how to interact with shadow elements in Selenium 4, right? So before we move on to the discussion, let us try to understand what is Shadow DOM. So Shadow DOM is nothing but it is a DOM inside the DOM, and it is the similar concept like frames. So as like we have frames in the document, right, in the page, similarly, we have the concept of shadow DOM so that we can better control one section of the page using the concept of shadow DOM. Right now, let us try to understand what are the different components of shadow DOM. So we have shadow host. So this is the node of the regular DOM where the shadow DOM is getting attached, right? And the nodes under the shadow DOM are known as the shadow DOM nodes, and this particular section is known as shadow tree, right? Moving on to the discussion of shadow boundary. So shadow DOM will start from one section in the regular DOM and will end at one section in the regular DOM. So that particular section is known as shadow boundary. And the root node of shadow DOM is known as shadow root. Right. Now let us try to understand it from one of the document. So I'm going to show you the same. So this is the document, right? So this is how the shadow DOM will look like. So this is our regular DOM, right? Now you see that we have document as the root node and this is the regular tree. And when we attach a shadow DOM to a particular regular node of the uh, regular DOM tree, then that particular node is known as shadow host. This is what we just discussed. And the nodes under this particular shadow DOM is known as shadow tree, right? This particular section is known as shadow tree, and as shadow host is starting here and will be ending here, so this particular section is known as shadow boundary, and this is how it will look like in the like big frame, right? So we have document, this is regular tree, this is shadow host, and this is the shadow tree, right? Now let us try to understand it from the real-time example, right? So this is the Chrome settings page, right? So when, for example, we try to locate this particular element, we are unable to locate, right? So how to confirm that? So first of all, I'm just keeping it in the lower section. So when, for example, I'm locating this particular section and I'm trying to find the XPath for same, so using @id equal to search input, and then I'm going to enclose it into the square bracket, and initially I'm going to put input, right, which is the label or tag, right? Now you see that even though we have provided the correct path, but it is unable to locate this particular element, and as a result we won't be able to interact with these kind of elements in Selenium directly, because if we will use driver.find element, we will get no such element exception because these are not available in the regular DOM, right? So now we need to find out like whether it really exists in Shadow DOM or not. When we are unable to find elements, so we need to check which area or which section they fall under. So we will go up. So we will notice that it is shadow root, and then we need to go to the topmost root node, right? So this is the head, this is the body, and under this we have settings UI, and this is the like first topmost root node, right? So this particular settings UI, which is the node of the regular DOM, this is known as the shadow host because it is hosting the shadow DOM, and this particular node is known as shadow root in this particular tree, right? Similarly, we will have a few more. So this particular shadow root is known as the shadow root node of this particular tree, right? So this is nested shadow roots actually, right? And this particular shadow root, when we are closing, so this particular section is known as shadow boundary, right? Because this is where the shadow boundary is getting closed, right? And this entire is known as shadow tree, right? Now we have understood to about the shadow root and shadow DOM components. Now it's time to how to locate, because we are unable to locate these elements. So how to locate them? So we will have to use console in these cases. So first of all, we need to find out this settings UI. So this is possible because this is the regular node. So what I will be using, document dot query selector, right? And what I'll be doing, I'll be simply pasting this section settings UI, and we won't be able to paste it here, so let me move to the different window where we already have it open. So I'm going to use this particular window because that is a separate window where we are having some issues. So what we will be doing, so we'll be using document dot query selector, right? And now what we need to do, we need to find out the regular element, that is shadow host. So how to find it? So this is how we can find it, right? As soon as we will type in, we will get this particular thing. Now the next thing is we need to get the shadow root. So there is a concept of shadow root here as well. So now we have pointed to this settings UI, and under this we are getting this shadow root, and using this shadow root we can get any element under this particular shadow root, though we won't be able to get the element of shadow root under this. Again, we will have to get the shadow root here as well. So let us talk about this one, CR toolbar, right? Because it falls under this shadow root. So we got this particular element and then we got this shadow root. Now we are going to find the different like node under it, right? So again, we will be using query selector, and this time I'll be passing this. So this is how we define the CSS selector. So we'll have to use the CSS selector concept. So you see that I am able to locate to this particular element. So this is how we can locate the elements using the CSS, this console part, right? This is how we can locate the elements of Shadow DOM, right? Now we have understood how to locate these elements. Now moving on to how to interact with shadow elements using Selenium, right? So there are two ways. One is JavaScript executor, then there is a get shadow root, right? And this thing, JavaScript executor, it was applicable prior to Chrome version 96, but nowadays the Chrome versions are 122 or 121, right? So it won't work. So we will just discuss about the downside, why it is not working, right? Then we will move on to the Selenium for get shadow root method, right? Right. Now moving on to this particular framework, so I have created one basic Maven class, Maven project I mean, wherein I am having I'm using the latest Selenium version, that is 4.17.0, which is the latest version as of the date, March 2024. Here I have created one shadow class wherein I have created one like main method, right? Now I'm going to write simple line for initializing the Chrome driver, new Chrome driver. So you will see that I'm not defining system.setProperty or WebDriver manager because I'm using the Selenium 4, and in Selenium 4 there is no need of it, as same is being taken care by Selenium manager. In case you are not aware, I'll be sharing the link of the video which I have created in the past to gain some good understanding around that, right? Now the next thing is driver.get. So what we will do, we will go here, we will copy this particular section, and now again we will come here, right? Now the next thing is, what do we need? So I'm again coming here. So we were trying to find this particular element, right? So we defined the XPath also. So we were using input, and let me simply again point to this. So input, and this is the section, this one, right? Input, and then ID equal to search input. So you see that we are unable to locate. If we will try to find out from Selenium, so same thing we will get here as well. Driver dot find element, right, by dot xpath. So now let me run it. So when we will run it, it will launch the Chrome browser, it will enter this particular URL, and then it will try to find this particular search input field, right? And it will get no such element exception because this is not part of regular DOM, right? So this is what we will be discussing. So you see that we got no such element exception and they are unable to locate this, right? So now let us discuss about JavaScript executor first. So how do we use like use to find the shadow elements using JavaScript executor? Though it was a working condition prior to Chrome version 96, I'm just showing the downside, like we are getting some error nowadays. So first of all, we need to cast our driver to JavaScript executor. So this is what I'm going to do now. JavaScript executor, and then here we are going to cast driver, right? Now here we will take it in JavaScript executor and JS. Right now what we will do, we will simply do the same thing that we did on the console, because console works similar to this, right? Because that also uses this js.execute script. So document dot, or sorry, arguments of 0 of 0, right? And then arguments of dot 0, and then we need element. So first of all we need to find the element, so driver dot find element by dot css selector. So I'm again going back to that particular window, right? So not this window, actually this was the window. So I'm going to the console, so I'll simply copy paste that section. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this particular settings UI, right, and we'll put it here. So using this I'll be able to get the element, right? So this is, we can give it name web element shadow host, right? Because this is the shadow host. Now once we got it, so the second thing is we need to provide here, right? Sorry, shadow host, right? So arguments of 0 will take this shadow host. So second thing is we need to use again shadow root that we did there, right? So this is what we did, right? So let me show you. So this is what we did. We tried, we found out this particular URL, particular endpoint, sorry, element, sorry, and then we pointed out to shadow root. So this is what we are doing here as well. So now we have given shadow root, and what we are going to do, we are going to type return statement, and as if you will go on js.execute script, it will return object. So let us take it in web element, right? Web element and element, right? And you will get some error because it returns object and we are trying to cast it into element. So now if we will do this, and let us try to find element, because we got the element. So by dot css selector again. So I'm again going to that window, and there what I'll be doing, I'm going to copy this particular section this time, CR toolbar, right? So let us see what will happen this time, because you see that we are using Chrome 122, so it will have some issues. So I have started the execution now. So you see that it launched, and now come back here. So it is saying shadow root cannot be cast to org.openqa.selenium.web element. This is because Chrome has made some changes post Chrome version 96, right? So now how to, so JavaScript executor we cannot use it, right, for Chrome version greater than 96. So now what is the alternative? So Selenium 4 has introduced another concept, that is get shadow root. So what we will do, we will simply use this thing, driver, first of all shadow host, whatever we just was doing, right? So I'm just going to enter it, and I'm going to remove this particular section so there is no confusion. So driver dot find element. So first of all we are finding the element, and then after what we can do, we can use this shadow host to get the shadow root. So there is a method get shadow root. So using this get shadow root we can get the shadow root, right? Now once we have got this shadow root, right, so you see that it is returning search context. So what do we need on the left side? Search context, and we can give it name uh, search context and main or root node, right? Because this is the root node of this shadow dom. Root node dot find element by dot css selector. So just remember we need to use only css selector, otherwise it won't work. It will give error like invalid locator. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this particular section, and I'll simply provide it here, and we will see that we are able to find this element, meaning we won't get any error now. So I'm running it, and we should not get any error. So it will launch Chrome browser, we'll enter that settings, and we should not get any error this time, right? So I'm simply going back here, and I don't have any issue at all, right? So you see that it is working fine. Now let us talk about nested shadow root, because in our thing what we were trying to do, we were trying to enter value here, right? So how to reach till this? So this particular element falls under multiple shadow root, right? So how to go till that? So first of all we need to this is head, so I'm collapsing it. So we have body, so this is what we have got. Now we need to get the next element, next shadow root, right? So first of all, so this is the again the shadow root for this particular thing. So what we will do, we will again so we reach till this point. So what we will do, we will simply root node dot find element. So we will simply again convert this into shadow host or shadow root, sorry. So get shadow root, and this time we will give it name search context, and let us say search root node, right? Right, now come back again. So this is the search root node. So we reach till this point. Now the next thing is we got this shadow element. So next thing is we need to get this particular element. So this particular element is again this field. So what we can use in this case? So it has id. So we will simply use and go here search root, because now we got that particular thing, dot find element by dot css selector, and for id we need to provide hash. So this is what we are going to do now, right? Now I'm again coming back. So you see that we reached till this point. Now the next thing is this is again the like host for this shadow root. So we can say this is again the shadow root. Now the next thing is we need to reach to this particular thing, right? So how to reach to that particular thing? So this is the search input. So what I will be doing, so in this case I'll be simply using it. So we got this. Again, we'll be using first of all get shadow root. I'll be explaining it one by one. So search context, and this is search field. And now using this search field root, you can say, or search field node, we can say, right? Now using this search field root dot find element by dot css selector, and again I'll be passing in hash, because this is the id we have used, and that send keys and sample, right? So we will enter sample, and at last I am going to quit driver as well. So let us run this particular program. Once it is run and it works fine, I'll explain you what we have done, right? So I'm running it, and let us wait for the execution. So you see that it entered sample, right? Or if you want to take a look again, so I'll simply run it. I'm not quitting so that it will stay for some time. So you see it will enter sample. So you see that it is entering sample, right? And now if we write driver dot quit, it will quit the driver, right? So now let us try to understand what we have done. Okay, so we need to reach till this endpoint, till this element. So first of all we are coming to this shadow host, right? So this is what we have done. So first of all we are coming to this shadow host settings UI, and now under this settings UI we are trying to reach to the element, this element, so that we can reach till this settings. So we see that under this shadow root itself there is another shadow root, that is shadow nested. So we are again going to get the element. So first of all we are getting this element, and after getting this element we are trying to get this particular shadow root. So what we have done, so first of all we got this shadow host, then get using this shadow host dot get shadow root, we got this root node, and again we find the element using this root node, and again we got the shadow root. So we got the shadow root, now this one. Now the next thing is we need to come here, because we see that again there is a shadow root before reaching till this element. You see this is the element that we are looking for, correct? So in order to reach till this point, there is another shadow root. So we are now using that shadow root. So what we are trying to do now, we are trying to find this search, right? So this particular field has search. So we have used hash as the CSS selector, hash and the ID, right? So this is how we find the like CSS selector for ID, and again we are getting the shadow root. Now we are reached till this point. So the next thing is using this shadow root. There is no more like shadow root further. So we are simply using search field dot find element. So this is the root we got, dot find element by dot css selector, and this is again we are using the search input. So you see that it is again having the input ID, and in order to point css selector using ID, we provide hash um, hash, right? And then we are trying to enter sample. So this is how it works. This is what I wanted to cover as part of current video, and I wanted to give good clarity around what is shadow element, how to deal with shadow element, and how to deal with nested shadow elements. So I would request you to please like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and thank you once again.